Hey buddy, over here. Hey, listen, I got something for you. I got a cool consumable, but you can't tell anybody about it. It's not legal per se in 5th edition. Wait, what's that? What's that noise? Oh, come on. I can't go anywhere without these things just biting on my collar. Hi everyone, I'm Willowares, and it's boss baby time, where we take a regular D&D creature and we make it boss worthy. This time we're gonna take the adorable Rust monster and make it into a big bad boss. And I also want to take a trip down memory lane and teach you about one of my favorite D&D items that we lost in 5th edition. So let's get right into it. Rust monsters are simultaneously not scary at all and also the most scary, depending on who you ask. It also highlights a very unique balance problem in D&D that we'll get to later. But if you aren't familiar with our rusty baby, look no further than the description from issue 88 of Dragon Magazine. Quote, "The Rust monster is a creature of curious, even comical appearance. It waddles with great speed at an ungainly rocking motion, dubbed galumphing." God, I can't laugh every time I say galumphing. Ungainly rocking motion, dubbed galumphing, by some long ago observer, and chitters in the fashion of field mice. It is much respected by artisans and fighting men, however, for its power to cause metal to rust or corrode away by its touch, which corroded metal it then devours and lives on, unquote. So let's quickly go over the rust... galumphing. Okay, no more galumphing. Don't think about galumphing. So let's quickly go over the Rust monster stat block so we can see what we're working with. Important to note here that every iteration of the Rust monster changes quite a bit. Let's look at the most recent version. Galumphing. Okay, sorry. At the top half of the stat block, the latest Rust monster doesn't seem too scary. He's got a faster speed than usual, a little bite attack and multi-attack, and the ability to find any ferrous metal within 30 feet. The second half of the stat block is where the fun is, though. Let's go over the destroy metal ability first. It does exactly what it describes, as long as the object is non-magical and isn't being worn or carried. It's the antenna attack, however, that strikes fear in the heart of adventurers. The Rust monster is able to degrade non-magical ferrous armor or weaponry if the player fails a dex saving throw. This instills a penalty that, if stacked enough, eventually destroys the item. They can also use this as a reaction. This is a monster that effectively rotates, at least now that it no longer has magic resistance, the traditional squishy caster/tank positioning in D&D. Suddenly your swords and maces are actually in long-term danger. So I see here at one point you had to roll a D100 to see what item was destroyed. That seems kind of brutal.
You're telling me. Used to be a lot faster too. I could have this better movement and with 3 times over use. I've never bought a lot of bad in 4th edition. Big chance of this.
And how do you feel about that?
Well, that's the pressures of D&D, isn't it? My family game and now even living meaning for the onion flows like the time. Some things are hers, and then it's any, but I don't.
And here, ladies and gentlemen, is where I reveal to you that I don't understand a word our guest is saying. But congrats, Rust Monster, you win! You get a car! Wait, that's my car that I paid for with my own...
I never win anything.
As you can see, Rust monsters have changed a lot. This is due to a rare aspect the Rust monster has in its kit. Most of the time, the game design agreement between monster and player is thus: if they confront each other, HP has a chance to degrade on both sides. The monster's difficulty hinges on how challenging it is to bring its HP to 0 and how much it can hurt you. There are some monsters, however, that have attacks and abilities that affect other aspects of the game. The Rust monster is one of them. Now you may think, well, the Rust monster damages a weapon, that affects the damage output of a character, which eventually affects HP again, so what's the problem? Well, weapons cost money and time.
Aw, $20. I wanted a
Weapons.
$20 can buy many.
Weapons.
Explain how. Money can be exchanged for goods and services.
The Rust monster is now affecting the party's item economy. Items, money, and interacting with the world to get them is something we can consider as a separate system than combat. Sure, it all funnels eventually into how much damage a character can do, but this is the reason, I believe, why Rust monsters have changed so much over the course of D&D. It's a monster part of 2 worlds. Like Hannah Montana.
You get the best of both worlds. Chill it out, take it slow. Then you're a Rust monster.
So I actually like that the Rust monster does this. I like that it's a monster that you have to make so many choices about as a DM. The Rust monster is an excellent exercise in telegraphing for new DMs, for example. The party approaches the cave, outside sits a man fussing over a ruined shipment of weapons. Or an incredibly punishing encounter for a low-level party that refuses to keep watch. They awaken to find the Rust monster is cuddling up with the paladin, wresting away his armor, in a totally platonic way. But a lot of tables are kind of split on these guys. Just scroll through the internet to see all the posts talking about how to run a Rust monster, which version is best, etc. I'd be interested to hear what you think is best as well. Personally, I love the versions of the Rust monster that are a bit more punishing and are weapon-munching machines. I like my low-level games to feel very dangerous, and the Rust monster is a new way to telegraph danger outside of just simple combat. So what if we came up with a monster that straddles the two systems, only this time it's consumables, not weapons and armor. It's a nod to how cool the Rust monster can be, but it also offers a different route for DMs that don't really feel like balancing the Rust monster issue. And, in tribute to all versions past, let's flip through D&D's history to find a particularly delicious one. But what consumable, you ask? Oh, nothing really special, really, only like the coolest, most secret thing ever in D&D that was ripped from our pleading, desperate hands that we think about every night, like our most precious lost dream. Interestingly enough, the word emurement in our regular English language usually just refers to the act of entombment. It can be for punishment, for religious reasons, or for Edgar Allan Poe's Cask of Amontillado reasons. However, in D&D, emurements were a little bit more complex than that. They are described thusly in the Adventurer's Vault 2. Quote, "An emurement is a rare form of magical prison that contains a place that has been sealed away from the rest of the world. The enchantments placed on emurements are fragile. When an emmurement's power is expended in a blast, it releases the terrain and effects contained within it into the blast area for a short time." Unquote. So in short, a consumable that changed the terrain. Imagine a legendary battle trapped in a bottle where a big bad smashes it at his feet and relives the day he felled a kingdom as he approaches the party. Or a powerful wizard who throws an emurement of a volcano at the foot of a snowy mountain, effectively forcing the party to switch their tactics and realize they prepared for the exact opposite scenario. And that was super cool. I'm sure your gears are turning already, thinking as to what kind of emurements you could make for your own games. For example, an Oath of Conquest paladin boss that just tosses out emurements of his previous conquests, and maybe he's wearing super cool armor, and he doesn't look at the camera, and like his armor's like black and shiny and it's covered in blood, and he's really cool. Like you get the point. I'll stop. But it's good. It's it's really good, and it's not just for combat either. So what was the problem with emurements? Well, for me, the basic emurement was definitely cool. It was just a neat way to bring a tiny bit more flavor to changing the terrain. Looking at it from a DM's perspective, sometimes it could be a little bit of a pain in the butt to have the battlefield changed, even if it was just for a while. It involves a tiny bit more planning to make sure the party gets emurements that are fair to your setting, and you obviously can't know exactly when your player would throw one down, and that's absolutely why they are temporary. This is the big balancing force that makes sure emurements weren't taking over cities, etc. And that's also what I don't like about them, at least for the super cool ones. For example, one of the cooler emurements you could get was an emurement of the Dragon's Boneyard. The descriptor hinted at a big quest. You basically could search far and wide to find pieces of a map to eventually get it. And it has this cool backstory, this great buildup of what it looks like and why it's there, and you use it once and it's gone. And I completely understand why. If it was permanent, it would have the Rust monster conundrum. If it was multi-use, you would probably still have the Rust monster conundrum. It would be a headache to balance, and maybe that's why they haven't made a reappearance in the current edition. Or maybe it's because there are so many other emurement-like flavorings you can give spells or abilities, who knows? So what can we do to make emurements feel less like we're losing a super cool rare opportunity? Well, we just make it more evil. We make it more evil, of course. Will-o-wares. When in doubt, make something more evil. Will-o-wares. That's a good Will-o-wares quote. Kirby and the Crystal Shards is a beloved entry in the Kirby franchise. Like all Kirby games, you'd play the friendly pink little guy with a voracious appetite that gains different powers depending on who you immured in your stomach last. Much like the Rust monster, Kirby is inherently friendly but never satisfied. In Crystal Shards, you can combine different abilities, resulting in pretty cute and cool combinations. Finally, Kirby throws up the very essence of his prey and mocks nature by holding it above his head. Heartlessly, he throws it, and the crystal essence, perhaps the very soul of the beast he voraciously consumed, disappears against the alien landscape, never to dream again. The idea of Kirby reducing his enemies down into a crunchy, consumable thing is interesting to me. He's the Rust monster, but he's also something completely new and elevated. And this is where you put like a cool foreshadowing note, like, oh, she's doing this because she's gonna bring it up later. The Endless is a movie about two brothers returning to a commune, or cult, depending on who you believe at the start of the film, they spent time in as kids. I'll be giving a big plot point away, but I really encourage you to see it regardless. Directed by and starring Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead.
Because I'm too pensive, and I'm too
Boom.
It's a great example of how you can make interesting horror with a lower budget. I won't give the whole movie away, but the most chilling part of the film is that various characters are trapped in time loops. Some are over a longer stretch of time. To me, the more chilling ones were the shorter ones, those that were forced to relive a few hours over and over, and even one that lasts just a few moments. It's a new, terrifying way to think of an emurement, not just trapped in a cage, but trapped in a time loop. And finally, oysters. Finally! God, I can't believe it took her this long. Oysters are a mollusk that have the ability to reverse jawbreaker a jawbreaker. That is to say, they can cover a tiny grain of whatever gets stuck inside of them with the material known as nacre, or nacre, or nacre. Oyster experts feel free to weigh in. Basically what we commonly call mother of pearl. Much like the rust monster, though, of course, over a much longer period of time, the oyster is able to cover an object with something new, eventually changing its state. Only this time, instead of breaking something down, they build it into something valuable. They are also really good with a little bit of garlic, some lemons, some butter, and then you sprinkle a little bit of black pepper on there. Ooh, you got some garlic oysters, you put those in your game. Or don't. Just know that I read the comments, and I take them very seriously. So let's take a look at our recipe. We've got a creature that should straddle two systems, a teensy bit more beefy than our regular rusty boy, a tried and true horror element, and oysters, just for flavor. And let's see what we can cook up. Okay. Confession of the thief Brindis Ironshield before her inevitable immurement for crimes against the royal crown. Never met a lock I didn't like. That is to say, never met one that couldn't be picked. Over my life, I've met a fair share of them that proved difficult, but those are the ones that hide the best secrets. They told us the job was easy, just in and out, and that the factory had been abandoned. 700 platinum to split between the three of us if we got what they wanted. Just a stupid bag of pearls. Only two simple rules: don't break the locks, don't make too much noise. The bag of pearls was easy enough to find, but we couldn't leave the way we came in. Our information wasn't right, the shift rotation was all wrong, and one of the guards spotted us. A long, dark hallway with a door at the end. I thought the door was iron, but the second I placed my hands on it, I knew it to be smooth, dark glass. And then a glass lock, which was strange. Not something you'd put in a prison, certainly. I heard something behind the door, like a distant rainstorm. We could hear the guards coming from behind us. It snapped in my hands. My fault. If I could take it back. But we kept going. We walked through the door. The rain sound, it wasn't water, it was their feet, their appendages surging over each other as they ran in a circle, around in that great vacant room, a black mass of shimmering wings and gnashing jaws. Glass floor, glass walls. One noticed us and started approaching, antenna twitching in the dim light. What had they been eating? Each other? Maybe. I don't think about that too much. Watching the arrow loose from Martin's bow, though, I think about that all the time. He was always so certain. Right between the eyes, and he got it. It fell, and then the others descended upon it, swarmed it, and the cracking of something being broken and consumed. Everything happened pretty quickly after that. Velda, that was our druid, she cast Entangle in front of us, but it barely slowed them down. They ate the thorns and vines like starved beasts. They got Martin first, then Velda. The pearls, they flew out of the bag and fell to the floor. One of them broke, and suddenly the room was alight, like nothing I'd ever seen. A ripple of energy, and suddenly I was knee-deep in dark water, the sound of ships breaking and screams. It slowed them, thank God, for a moment, and I was somehow able to reach where I remembered the door to be. And then it was the dark room again. The beasts were still as stone, satisfied. There, on the floor, Velda's quarterstaff, half chewed. And there, Martin's knife, sticking defiantly from the back of one of the beasts. I practically ran into the guard's arms. I'll never forget what it looked like. I've seen dragon fire rip through the sides of castles. I've seen portals open up to the hells themselves. But I've never seen something as wrong as that. Watching the wood fall away like one of the gods, fluttering existence as if it was just a curtain. Watching the walls start to bend and break and blink in and out. Velda and Martin are still out there, I think, locked in some terrible place. They told me, the chronomancers told me that when you're consumed, you're stuck in a loop of whatever was around you when it happened, reliving it over and over. I think I'm stuck there too, in a way. Apparently the amber dungeons are just rows and rows of them nestled in boxes. Before you take me to them, take my hands first. I don't want to look at them anymore. Here ends the account. The cage crawler is a unique monster, able to sustain itself on materials such as stone, wood, crystal, or metal. Depending on its diet, the cage crawler's strange carapace will shift slightly in color and shape. Interestingly enough, it seems to avoid certain stones such as limestone and quartz, only resorting to it when necessary, and completely abstaining from glass altogether. It is theorized the beasts originally hailed from another plane where life is so sparse that they evolved as such. They can grow to large sizes and are docile enough to be kept as pets, some even using them for transport. In the wild, the cage crawler itself shows little interest in consuming passerbys, content to slowly feast upon the landscape. But kept in specialized glass containers, the beasts will begin to hunger, sometimes resorting to eating each other, and eagerly will eat anything when released in this hungered state. But what is truly unique about the cage crawler is its digestion process. A cage crawler is able to create a sort of pocket dimension as it feasts. Over the course of a few days, it produces a gray amber, a pearl-like substance that houses this pocket of time. When the pearl is shattered, the moment reappears and the trapped items and people are momentarily released. Under certain specialized circumstances, this release may be permanent, but most flicker out of existence within a few minutes. Harvesting this material before it is expelled can kill the beast. However, with a careful hand, one can replace the gray amber with a smaller false glass sphere, starting the process anew. Long ago, prisons adopted this method to house inmates. Unfortunately, this is where the cage crawler gets its name. However, this practice was judged as unusually cruel, as many found that by the time the prisoners were released, they had lost their minds. Today, gray amber is seen as an incredibly rare and divisive spell component, but interestingly enough, can also be used for de-aging properties. A large, older cage crawler is capable of housing several ambers, some rumored to have contained entire villages. Those who are particularly heartless value these beasts as they can be prison, guard dog, and a treasure chest all at once. It is up to the party to avoid the fate of being consumed by a ravaging cage crawler, and a particularly brave one to discover what secrets it may hold. Hey, we did it! We did it. I hope you feel the gross process of gray amber is sinister enough for your campaign, or at least gets the gears turning for how you could incorporate a similar idea. And for the price of free, yes, the very steep price of not a single doll hair, here's the stat block and the art of our cuddly cage crawler. And just for patrons, I've added some various samples of gray amber for you to try. I mean, like, don't eat it. Don't eat it, though. You don't know where it's been, and in a pocket dimension, exploding inside your mouth would not be pretty. If you like this, feel free to like and subscribe so I won't eat any metal support structures inside of your building. All right, now I'm gonna get a little emotional, a little mushy, so get ready. Finally, and most importantly, I would really like to thank everyone who has liked and shared my videos. There's 20K of us now, which is crazy. That number feels absolutely crazy to me, but I feel motivated to keep creating, and I will strive to make even cooler things for all of you. So to everybody who's tuned in, thank you for being early supporters, and anyone new, hey, welcome. Thanks for coming in. All your comments and kind words make me look forward to the parts of my day where I'm actually able to work on this. So thank you, genuinely. Okay, now we're back to silly stuff. If you'd like to be subjected to a continuous loop of Willoware's videos, I've got some more links that you can click on at the end. The world is a buffet, ba-na-na-na-na-na, made of metal, ta-na-na-na-na, secret snackies, ba-na-na-na, shaped in sword and shields, da-na-na. But what do I get for my pain? I'm doing that too much. Balance, movement, speed, do-do-do-do-do-do, that changes every game. Even though I know players move quite slow. My antenna knows like a nose, but like a nose, 'cause I can smell the rust. Despite all my rust, I'm still just a rust a rust monster.